because we are receiving tourists from every corner of the country. But what I noted that, from every corner of the globe, but what I noted that some groups of tourists will actually be moving with interpreters. So those interpreters or translators would then assist me when interacting or even when filling those questionnaires. Okay? So, but I think there's need, that's why it is recommended again that tour guides, they have to be multilingual so that they are able to then communicate with tourists from various backgrounds. I've also noted that in some of the tour guide programs that are being offered, there is a foreign language involved. Okay, that's an important comment. Okay, another question about the satisfaction model. Like I pointed out at the beginning of the presentation, you realize that there is that paradigm shift from the service economy, where we've got those models, the grundlaws that we're talking about. Okay? So if you are going to be applying those same models for a different economy, we are also going to get into other challenges as well. So the model that I used applies for a different paradigm, which is the experience economy. Okay, and then the issue of data collection, okay, vis-a-vis the opinions. Okay, maybe it's a learning process as well, even for me. I also recommended at the end of my thesis, my study, that similar studies can also be done using different methodologies to see if the same results can be attained. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Urombo, for the presentation and the answers that you have provided to the questions that were raised. Before, can you give him please a round of applause? Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next presentation, maybe I could also react to the question that came from Mr. Jecheche about the application of structural equation modeling or confirmatory factor analysis to perceptions data. Since I suppose Dr. Urombo used a Likert scale to gather his data, which means that his data is perception based. In the area of tourism and marketing, we rely so much on perceptions, and we use Likert scales to gather data, which data we can analyze using regression tools such as confirmatory factor analysis. So in my opinion, I think this methodology is correct as it is. But if we go to a discipline like economics and natural sciences, certainly that would not be acceptable. But in marketing, in tourism, this is a social science. It's allowed. It's correct. Thank you very much. Dr. Chikuta, can you please come forward to make your presentation? Thank you very much. I'm being informed that Dr. Chikuta did not make it to this event, so we are moving on to the third presentation from Dr. S. Nyarwata, who has just whispered, and Dr. M. Basera. Their presentation, the title is A Critique of the Contribution of Tourism to Jobs in the Southern African Development Community, SADC. Can we please give them a round of applause as they come forward? Thank you. It's your time, Dr. Basera.
Good afternoon, ladies ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Our title, as you already know, a critique on the contribution of tourism to jobs in the Southern African Development Community, SADC. Now, for introduction, we are going to present the following. That's what we are going to give you: the study objectives, background, methodology, literature review, tourism and jobs in the SADC, conclusion, and our recommendations as well, which we are making on our study. For our background, you all know that globally, tourist arrivals have experienced sustained growth since 1990, with the total arrivals standing at 1.4 billion in 2018. And international tourism receipts stood at US 1.6 trillion. Global tourism jobs stood at 319 million in 2018. And in Africa, tourist arrivals grew from 52 million in 2009 to 67 million in 2018. Within the SADC now, coming closer home, within the SADC region, tourist arrivals grew from 21 million in 2009 to 26 million in 2018. But so you can actually tell that there is growth in tourism and tourist arrivals. Notwithstanding the overall growth which we are talking about, which is experienced by the tourism sector in the SADC region, employment levels and labor productivity in the SADC region are generally low. Youth and women in the rural areas are the most affected by unemployment and underemployment. In many instances, the capacity to participate as equal and well-equipped partners in the tourism ventures. And so this is quite problematic, as you can see. It actually prompted us to carry out this study because we had these observations. Our study objectives are going to be to assess the quantum of jobs that have been created by the tourism sector in the region, and to assess the quality of the jobs provided by the tourism sector, to highlight the challenges faced by workers in the tourism industry in the region, and to make recommendations that will facilitate the growth of jobs in the sector and the continuous improvement of working conditions for the workers in the industry. And for our methodology, this study employed a desk research approach. The researchers accessed the published information on tourism and jobs mainly through the internet. We actually searched certain databases that were of interest to us. The data was drawn from scholarly journals, in international organizations, annual reports, SADC and SADC member states, annual reports, publications of international organizations like UN, WTO, IOO, and the WTTC. These were extensively used and were consulted. So for the rest, or for the next part of our presentation, we are going to hear from my co-presenter, Mr. Nyarwatase, Dr. Nyarwatase.
Thank you, Dr. Basera, and good afternoon, everybody. When we are talking about SADC, obviously we are talking about the 16 states of SADC, which are on our screen. Of course, this changed. At one stage, Comoros was not there. At one stage, Seychelles was not there. And they keep changing. But that's where we are at the moment. When we look at tourism development within SADC, what is very critical in terms of jobs, everything that member states have done is really dependent on the protocol on tourism, which was then signed by member states in 1998 in Mauritius. What is critical for, I think, our discussion is that the objectives that are in that protocol are very critical in the sense that member states at that time were aware that tourism was basically a low-hanging fruit in terms of job creation. And therefore, you find that what SADC member states have been doing at both regional and member states level was really being guided by the tenets of the protocol on tourism development. Now, if we look at jobs in SADC, there are a number of things that we thought we would share with yourselves this afternoon, in the sense that we have both direct and indirect jobs. But if you're just looking at direct jobs, these obviously have been increasing from about 4.6, I think, in 2011 to about, I think, 6 million in 2018. And what's critical is that you also have got a number of areas where these jobs are really coming from, especially accommodation. You're looking at conferences and again destination management. So those are core areas, as well as airlines, which are creating a variety of jobs within the region. What's interesting, I think, is that there has been also an explosion of bed and breakfasts around the whole region. And of course, that has created a lot of jobs, but of course, these are limited jobs because you're dealing with SMEs. But that's very critical because it's family business. Airbnb is another development that has occurred in the region. And of course, that's also creating employment. Now, if we look just quickly at the contribution of tourism to jobs in different member states, what's very critical, again, what is very clear at that graph that we have is that that is a percentage of contribution of jobs to tourism in total employment in any given member states. And what's interesting is that obviously, if you look at South Africa, because of the highly diversified economy, again, very interesting figures which are coming out there. Now, the nature of jobs in tourism in SADC is that we have really sort of a range of jobs. Again, this was highlighted by ILO, where at lower levels you've got waiters and what have you, and again, middle management to the directors. I was told, I think I'm sort of running by time. So, a range of things that I wanted us to share to say the nature and characteristics of jobs globally, including SADC. And I think ILO sort of touched upon that. Now, what's critical, which I thought was very interesting, is the nature of gender differences in jobs in SADC. Just a few years ago, we did some study in SADC, and what came out was that almost 80% of the CEOs, both government and private sector, were male. And anecdotal evidence at the moment is showing that that situation has not really changed that much. So there's an issue there which needs, again, to be interrogated. Low wages, fairly common, and what's interesting, just in January, the South African government put a policy where they were then requesting the tourism industry to increase the hourly wages of people in tourism at the lowest level to 20 rands per hour. and there was an outcry from the industry. And I've got a suspicion even our own industry, the issue of wages for workers in the tourism industry is something that we need to interrogate. Just to conclude, we're saying that if we look at SADC, tourism has got major potential for job creation, but there are issues. And we thought we would not be correct if we did not just highlight something that we need to move forward, because Zimbabwe is a key area, and there are a number of areas that we thought after this conference, there has to be in-depth studies in order to assist the government really to come up with appropriate policies. And that covers a whole range of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mbasera and Dr. Nyarwata. Can we have 2 quick reactions to their presentation before we move forward? 2 quick reactions to the presentation.
Thank you, it's Dr. Sengira again. My question is, maybe coming from my own observation, that there is a lot of employment in the tourism industry. But maybe the reasons why we are not doing well is maybe it's coming from the fact that our satellite or tourism satellite accounting is not very good at the moment. Because the fact that from the jobs that you presented us there, you would find that there are no, maybe those guys who are doing things for themselves, those guys like who are selling artifacts and curios, they're not there. So I find that until maybe our tourism satellite account as a country is in good shape, we might not be able to really come up with proper tourism statistics, especially for the employment on the employment side. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Mr. Mandevu down here.
Thank you very much, MC. For the 2, the question is, out of the study, which of the countries were doing better in terms of gender balance vis-a-vis your indication of CEOs at top level? And how is Zimbabwe faring? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have less than a minute in which to respond to this. Dr. Mbasera, Dr. Nyarwata. About a minute.
Thank you very much. Just quickly, I think from what Dr. Zengeno was saying, yes, satellite accounting system is very critical, and what is interesting though is that as far back as I think 1999, SADC had, I think, the first satellite account at a regional level, and subsequent to that or after that, we have had a number of member states that have now put together satellite accounting system. Namibia is well ahead. They've got annual satellite accounting system. If you look at South Africa, it's got annual satellite accounting. Zimbabwe have been sort of trying to do that, and I think we're sort of slowly getting there. So yes, it's critical, but again, some of the data, if you want to then look at employment, you could begin to get that. The question that Wamandev raised, I think the short answer is, A, the states which are doing better in terms of employment. One is South Africa, because of the nature of the size of its industry. But again, if one was looking at that item in detail, I think the best country so far is Mauritius, because they're doing extremely well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyarwata, for the response to the comments or questions that were raised. Can we give the 2 presenters a round of applause? Thank you very much. We are, according to my watch here, 17 minutes or 16 minutes to the hour. and we still have 2 presenters. So I'm going to suggest that the 2 presenters will present, and then we'll give them time to respond. Each presenter, I will give them 5 minutes to make their presentation, just the introduction, and then from there, go to your objectives and then findings. Thank you very much. The first presenter is Mr. J.P. Sai from the University of Zimbabwe, and his presentation's title is Investment and Job Creation in the Tourism and Hospitality Industry in Zimbabwe. Mr. Sai, can you please come forward? Or maybe if he's not in at the moment, we can move on to Mr. Mandevu. You can present first. Mr. Mandevu, and of which Mr. Mandevu's presentation is Revamping Tourism Infrastructure in Kariba Resort Town, Reclaiming Our Lost Pride. Mr. Mandevu is from the University of Zimbabwe. Can we please give him a round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you very much, MC. The study was done in a very, very clear way to entertain the idea that we need to know what is the position of Kariba, what used to happen then, and what is now, and what is the future. The introduction is basically to tell us that Kariba definitely. I've been notified now that I do have some time, which is pretty exciting. Thank you, MC. What we are saying is that Kariba indeed is a giant, but as we possibly some of us know, it is facing critical challenges. It is indeed a giant that used to provide holiday to a lot of people within and outside the country in terms of visitation. Kariba hosted a good lot of people, and naturally that is gone. As you can see from the picture, that is Bumi Hill Safari Lodge. Fortunately for Bumi, this seemed to have been revived. From what we are getting, it is now 2 years in operations. And naturally, the people of Bumi should be enjoying the revival of Kariba. Our key indication is that Kariba right now is facing a lot of challenges. What are these challenges? They're to do with accessibility. Kariba is no more being accessible by air. Equally, it's not being accessed by road. In the means that at the end of the day, Air Zimbabwe is not flying to Kariba. And if you need to travel by road, you must work your way out in terms of planning. The planning should be to do with your transportation by road, and there are very clear challenges, one of which is fuel. In our findings, it is clear that Kariba could have done well, but there are a lot of things that are going wrong. One of which is, as indicated, is the transportation system. When there is no transport, you definitely cannot aim for anything because no visitors are going to reach you. And against that background, the transportation system makes it one of the key subsystems of the tourism industry. Accommodation
food and beverage operation, recreation, MICE for your meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. These are crucial for any particular destination. In this particular, Kariba as a resort requires all these to function effectively. Unfortunately for now, things are not going as expected. I am indicating the idea of accessibility here. When you want to be accessible as an indication of your destination's arrival challenges, you need to be able to appreciate the fact that you may need air transport, road transport, sea transport. For us, looking at Kariba, there are those two, your air transport and road transport. Down there, you have your Air Zimbabwe and Zupco. Suggestion is that if chances allow, the two could revive the fortunes of the particular resort, Kariba. One of the subsystems being accommodation, food and beverages indicated in the earlier statement. The recreation side gives you game viewing, water sports, things that used to happen in Kariba in a very professional way. Unfortunately, for now, the key challenge is destination accessibility. As you can imagine, when there is no access, definitely there is no business to talk about. The scenario for Kariba is that it requires resuscitation immediately. Job creation. It is true that jobs can be created if Kariba goes back on wheels. However, there must be some things to be done. Notably, tourism creates meaningful jobs directly or indirectly, because it is the highest multiplier effect. As indicated by some of the first presenters, tourism indeed links with many other industries as well as sectors of the economy. But for Kariba, the situation is not good enough because of the lack in the functionality of the subsystems. What are the developmental challenges for Kariba? Tourism depends on visitation of so many people in numbers. However, this is not the case for Kariba. Kariba needs a very serious aspect of publicity to be launched. Unfortunately, the decline of Kariba started way back when the country Zimbabwe, or destination Zimbabwe, was facing a whole barrage of bad publicity. And therefore, the resort was caught in the process. What are we saying right now, ladies and gentlemen, is that the decline in all these issues that we've been indicating, from transport, accommodation, and of course, recreation facilities being used, is because there has been low visitation in terms of tourist arrivals. Accordingly, Kariba then requires a lot of publicity. Within our study, we discovered that policy consistency is crucial. Currently, this is not being faced by Kariba alone. Most of the other institutions that are handling policy from the Ministry of Tourism, local government, and indeed Ministry of Home Affairs need to work together in order for the policy issues to be ironed out. However, at developmental level, we now have construction of structures that are at wrong places. And this is the same in many other tourist resorts in Zimbabwe. This leads to uncontrolled development. This is an issue that you can get anywhere. Accordingly, we are now at the stage where we are now talking about any kind of development. As indicated, we are saying avoid any kind of development. The challenges for any kind of development are as follows. You will get soil erosion, increased pollution, discharges into rivers, lakes, and dams, natural habitat loss, increased pressure on endangered species, and most importantly, heightened vulnerability to forest fires. This has been the case in Zimbabwe almost at most of our tourist resorts. We are suggesting marketing strategy for Kariba so that it can be revived. One, Kariba needs to formulate its own marketing strategy. Why? Because those resorts that are being marketed nationally seem to be having a very different picture when it comes to arrivals. The most popular destination or resort that is having a good tourist arrival figure is Big Falls. So it would be prudent for Kariba to take head-on its own marketing strategies. Two, it has unique features that we believe can be marketed on their own. We are also recommending publicity associations like we used to do before, that they are then strengthened, possibly by the ministry and local government together, so that they work in the promotion of tourism. Kariba Town Council must appoint a tourism committee to spearhead tourism growth. This could possibly be some solutions. In conclusion, what are we saying? Kariba has a great potential to become the first choice for holidaymakers. However, this is not possible now. It needs to work with government to ensure that the infrastructure is developed. We are looking here at the airport, the roads that link Kariba with many other areas. Considering Kariba is close to Zambia, something can be done to that effect. Key to any resorts development today should be the promotion of MICE. MICE is crucial. Meetings to do with anything that is in large numbers. We are hearing people at Big Falls, government, ministries, they all select to go to Big Falls. Why? Because that's where everything in terms of accommodation, including meeting and conference rooms, are available. We are also saying this could possibly be the best for Kariba. Needless to say, if all is done in line with the little findings and recommendations, the chances for Kariba to create jobs will be once again revived. Most importantly, these activities would lead to job creation. Ladies and gentlemen, that is to do with Kariba as a proposition to improve infrastructure. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandevu, for the presentation on revamping tourism infrastructure in Kariba Resort Town, reclaiming our lost pride. Can we give Mr. Mandevu a round of applause? Thank you very much. Now, we can have questions and comments, reactions to Mr. Mandevu's presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Mandevu. You seem to be laying a lot of emphasis on what Kariba local authority can do. We know tourism is of national interest. What is the role of ZTA in all this?
Mr. Mandela, the case of Kariba, is it not similar to the issue of the mouse who lost his cheese and ended up asking, who moved my cheese?
Mr. Mandela, you were proposing that infrastructure has to be improved. Is it also not an opportunity for the destination to be marketed as rustic?
Thank you. Maybe we can have one more question before he reacts.
Maybe it's a small question. Maybe I'd taken a nap. I didn't seem to see the methodology which was used for the collection of the data which has been presented.
Thank you. If you can move the mic here.
Thank you very much. I think just two quick comments. The one relates to the transportation systems you proposed. You talked more of air transport and the accessibility by road. But I think I just wanted to hear your comment pertaining the issue of the water transportation, because I think Kariba Dam is built along Zambezi River, so is Binga, so is Victoria Falls as well. And we used to have a ferry boat which is still operational up to now, a DDF ferry boat, another ferry boat through which you could leave Kariba together with your overnight with your vehicle, and you drop off at Mlebisi. You are then able to drive your vehicle to Victoria Falls. And what that can do is to ensure linkages between the two destinations, Victoria Falls and Kariba. Your comment on that. Then the other one is the overall product development itself. Bearing in mind that Kariba was not built for tourism. It was built to generate electricity. Then tourism was attracted thereafter. But what has happened beyond the building of the dam to make sure that there is any meaningful product which you can go and enjoy in Kariba, apart from being in the houseboat, for example. There are no any other adrenaline activities, maybe a zip liner, for example. So on the side of the product development, I think your comment on that is critical.
Thank you. Your time, Mr. Mandevu.
Thank you. I'll start off with what Mr. Renyo has just indicated. The issue of product development is very clear. When you look at Kariba, there are loads and loads of things that can be done over there in terms of activities. You are looking at game viewing, you are looking at water sports, you are equally looking at your usual cruises, sunset cruises. There are indeed a number of things that you can create in terms of other options to enjoy yourself in Kariba. There's also fishing. There used to be tiger fishing competitions in Kariba. And that is still very much possible. However, in terms of your issue to do with transport, water, how easy is it for any particular person to use that water transport for now is actually debatable. But definitely, I would say it is true, you can go ahead and also improve the transportation issue. It's crucially important. But most importantly, Kariba definitely has all the challenge to come up with strategies that will make it revived once again. Needless to say, when it comes to the issue of road and air transport, those are highly critical because it used to provide 3 flights a week. Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. From here to Kariba to Big Falls, back to Harare. So that is very possible. And this is the only way for those that are interested in going to Kariba, not by boat this time, but by air and road, can actually be encouraged to visit Kariba. The issue of ZTA is part and parcel of government. That's why I said Kariba Town Council or the Kariba tourism industry, as it is, should be able to work with government, and that includes ministries of environment and tourism. And definitely, they must also try and do something on their own, because this has been the case of during the last particular days when tourism was indeed flourishing. So we have not looked up, rather ZTA. They are still part and parcel of government. The study was carried out in response to Dr. Mpambire's question, was carried out via qualitative means in terms of questionnaires that were produced. They were produced to those that are in operation and those that were visiting, but there were very few of them who actually were there at that time. Most of the hotels were empty. Fortunately for now, there are some new lodges that are being constructed, and chances are that it may be the beginning of the survival and revival of Kariba. You say this is the case of somebody now claiming what he himself lost, right? No, it's not true, because Kariba is still part and parcel of the whole system, and they need to be assisted via various means, one of which will be to ensure that the pillars of tourism subsystems are put together. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mandevu, for the reaction. Can we give him another round of applause? Thank you very much. Now we move on to the last presentation on this segment, which is going to come from Mr. JP Sai, and the title is Investment and Job Creation in the Tourism and Hospitality Industry in Zimbabwe.
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. Being the last person, I take advantage of nothing. Okay, my topic is well read. This is something I'm not used to. Investment and job creation in the tourism and hospitality industry. And basically, I'm told that we are running out of time, so I'll be going through as much as possible, like Qantas from here to Australia, Mr. Mandev. Some people use Qantas Airlines. Right. My study is looking, perhaps it is wrapping up what we've been talking about, because we are talking of investment and job creation. And we're not talking of investment and job creation, we are talking literally of investment in tourism development, particularly investment in sustainable tourism investment. Tourism development. The statistics, we know those statistics, they've been said already today. They're showing the importance of tourism, very important sector, but you will find that perhaps some people might think that we are wasting our time not exploiting it. I'm pleased with the UNWTO because they are putting enormous attention to tourism throughout the world. Anyway, that's their charge. That's why they are called United Nations World Tourism Organization. They research, they encourage research, and as a result, we are informed a lot from the research outputs. So this paper seeks to explore the possible ways to attract investment for employment creation in the tourism industry, and also how jobs could be generated per se in the sector. It is framed around by way of methodology or the total tourism market, tourism sector, the public sector or public subsector, which is government, and then the private subsector, the operators. And we have actually gone on to the academia, the final year students, they were involved. So the model we will use is that of sustainable tourism development to address our topic. The definitions I will keep, but I want this one here. Sustainable tourism development is a new version of tourism development that meets the needs of present tourists and host regions while protecting and enhancing opportunities for the future. You find in various authors, they have paraphrased this one, etc. But at the end of the day, they continue to say, giving provisions that will satisfy current stakeholders and future stakeholders. So we should be managing all resources in such a way that economic, social, and aesthetic needs can be fulfilled while maintaining cultural integrity, essential ecological processes, biological diversity, and life support system. Obviously, this definition suggests a lot of investment. We cannot achieve the sustainable tourism development without putting money in the system. Investment, we are talking of money we employ in assets to give us investment facilities. And also it is the act of employing money or putting money into profitable use. The critical element of investment we are worried about is the FDI, the foreign direct investment. We'll reach there. Sustainable tourism development is premised on 5 pillars: tourism policy and governance, which has been touched throughout some of these reports. Economic performance, investment, and competitiveness. This is the center of this paper, where we are looking at economic performance, we are looking at investment, where we are looking at competitiveness. Employment, decent work, and human capital. This is the sub-center again. I'm sure in the morning, ILO, they brought this concept on board when they were talking about their major concern, because they are obviously labor people. Then poverty reduction and social inclusion. This is a critical element which actually, in most cases, it gets relief through number 3, through employment, decent work, and human capital. Because as ILO said in the morning,
employment seeks to address poverty. That's what we think. Although later on, Mr. Matura said then entrepreneurship, and I think even the other presenter, we were talking about entrepreneurship. Then sustainability of natural and cultural environment. These are aspects which then we would try to put money in. And talking of economic performance, we need to have strong economic indicators, economic performance indicators, and even investment indicators. And on employment, there are indicators that will actually form the basis of job creation or employment creation. Then we are talking there of tourism involving people, because it is people-driven. We are talking of consultations, tripartite systems, employment creation potential, we have to gauge that. Then skills gaps, we have to actually go into them and identify so that we can clearly plan to create jobs. Decent wages and working conditions, the magnitude of those, or the favorableness of those, will obviously require investment and at times may curtail our ability to create new jobs. HR training and development, where we have got a significant indicator or indication that means that we are actually creating employment through training programs. This one I'm not going to worry about. Okay, economic indicators. Real GDP, gross domestic product growth. This is how, by real I mean excluding inflation aspects and so forth. So 1.5 was the growth in 2015, in 2016 1.2, 2017 2.8, expected in 2018 6.7. So if we are having such performance, then there's no reason why we should not create employment, because the economy is growing, the economy is increasing in its activities. So for us to manage those activities would then require a growing economy. And this is a very good indication that we stand a good chance of creating employment. Real GDP per capita, 0.3, 0.6, 4.9, then that is, in 2017 is a bad indication because we are going down. That is our compensation, national compensation to a person from our national gross domestic product has gone down. We are unable now to pay or to maintain an individual. So we are likely to be stifled in our employment creation because some of the resources now will need to maintain the, that factor around 0.6. Then investment, which I said is critical. You can see the three figures, 2015, 2017, we are going down. And that is a bad indication for job creation. Very, very bad indication. Because without investment, we are talking here investment and job creation. And we need a lot of investment, particularly foreign direct investment. Then investment ratio, this is we are dividing investment by GDP. Then inflation. Inflation has been favorable in the first 2 years, but in the last 2 years, it's going up. And I'm sure you don't need to be told by me or some economist. You know what is happening. 2018, 10.6. The final figure might come around there. And now we are talking of about 176% inflation. Some are putting it at over 300. Just like in the crisis years, when authorities were putting inflation at 351 million percent, the other commentators were putting it in the zillions and the trillions, etc. Then BOP, this is balance of payments. Is another good indicator to tell us whether or not we can create employment. It's in minus, meaning that we are going to preoccupy ourselves to in trying to cover the balance of payments. We are importing more than what we are exporting. We are actually borrowing money to survive through buying from other people. And this is a dangerous thing that may not help us in creating employment. Then, talking of employment, these are the figures which show employment levels for each and every industry. The red one is tourism. According to the Zimbabwe statistical reports, in 2016, we had 38,600 employees in the industry, and then 37,900 in the industry, 38,000 in the industry. I don't know whether the industry will agree, but these are the figures we get from the authority, the statistician. So we tended to have increased in 2018, which is a good indication. Another good indication is that we, apart from the one which I said other, this one here, I didn't want to go on and on. These are miscellaneous categories. So excluding other, we are number 2 in employing people, which is a very good sign. And if we are number 2, why should we be number 3? Why should we be number 4? So we are likely to be number 2 for a long time, because manufacturing is nearly 3 times what we are employing. But we have got potential in that. The various indicators, I want now to things like contribution, tourism contribution to GDP, 3.6. Please, I'm taking these figures from our national statistician. And there are some ways in which different organizations would calculate. Like TBCZ, they might come up with their own figure. Ministry may come up with their own figure, depending on the issues involved. But here, we are talking of distribution, we are talking of food and catering and accommodation, etc. So that is a depressed figure, but it is representative of what fundamentally is happening. So tourism growth in Zimbabwe, 0.2, and we are expecting it to be 0.8 in 2018. It's a very, that figure, or those figures are promising figures, because they indicate that if we are growing, then we've got a chance of creating employment. Then banking rates, I'm putting this there because they curtail, they disturb investment, particularly operators. When the interest rates are high, then our operators will find it very difficult to borrow. So you find that the interest rates are rising. These are averages. But the actual rates which are accessed by or incurred by operators may be a bit higher than those. Then international arrival costs, these we have had. We had some growth rates. In 2017, 12%. This is heavily documented. Then 2018, a growth rate of 8.1. The growth rate has gone down in 2018, and we should be worried about that, because that won't be consistent with the employment creation. International receipts, okay, those are for statistical purposes. Then room occupants and bed occupants. These are critical indicators of performance. We are not hitting 50%. Perhaps consistent with the other reports, Mr. Mandevu, Siwari or Kariba could have contributed to that, because because we are saying that our occupancy is quite low. Perhaps inconsistent with the national occupancy statistics. Right. Then receipts. Here I want to just to show you that sub-Saharan Africa is contributing more. Tourism results than the northern part. So we have got potential to do better all the time. Okay, I'm told that perhaps I should wind up. Yes, this is literature review. This is the model I was talking about. In the full paper, you will find that sustainable tourism development will be influenced by infrastructure development, policies, national image, entrepreneurship, financial services, and linkages. If we invest, if we get money to invest in those, consistent with the word Ms. Mandeva's worry, we will be able to actually come up with a sustainable tourism development. If we achieve those, then we will have those better results, and then job creation will be assured. All right, just let me go to my, these were the results, the findings, but what I wanted to highlight were the fact that in the industry, we have some incentives to assist us to invest and to create jobs. Export incentive scheme given to operators 5%, but in RTGS, and the industry is not happy with that. Then export retention scheme 80% for operators. It was previously 100%. The industry is relatively happy with that. Then the VAT aspect, there was a change of policy. It was exempted, now it was imposed, and the industry is getting problems in trying to have full exemption. And the industry is having problems with the implementation of policies, and policy consistency is a big problem. And industry is saying, yes, we are trying to attract foreign direct investment. There's a big problem. We are trying to go into partnerships, PPPs. There's no cooperation on employment creation, training and development is non-existent, and the SMEs are not well groomed and supported. So we've got conclusions here and the recommendations. Let me just go to recommendations. We should attract FDI by all means. We should attract money for sustainable tourism development as much as possible, and then revamp national infrastructure. We have heard this already. Road networks, airport infrastructure, national railways, destination assets, spruce up national image, strengthen financial services, and encourage smart strategic intersectoral linkages, tourism and other sectors like agriculture, etc. And then embrace micro, small and medium enterprises into the whole thing. They might give us some change. Youth and women